everything and just talk about, our various experiences, at Chaney. Dallas Saunders, who is Red Saunders' nephew. I don't know if you guys have been watching, but they're doing a weekly podcast with Coach Burtis, where he's kind of recounting his coaching career and everything. And yeah, it's called Once a Cowboy, Always a Cowboy. And they're going year by year through his coaching experience at Chaney, start as a head man, starting at, I think it was 87, and talking about each individual team. And I saw it pop up on YouTube, and I think maybe Ron got me hip to it. And we reached out to Coach and Mr. Saunders. And so for the 92 team, me, Ron, Sylvester, and Mark were on the call with Coach Burtis and everything, and we kind of reminisced about the 92 team. That episode will likely be out either this Friday or the following Friday. And on the heels of that, me and Ron just decided to try to get together some of the key players off of not only the 92 team, but really kind of 90 through 92, that era that we were there. And just to, get you guys' perspectives on, your Chaney playing career. And as it turns out, most of the people that I've kept in contact with are the folks that also played afterwards. And I think now with Ron, with Dwayne and Tommy, I think we've talked now to everybody who played college football off the team. Actually, it was 8 of us, including Chuck, who played at least for a year. So we definitely wanted to chat a little bit about that. So Mager and Wayne is the 2 newbies on there, man. I just would throw it out to either one of y'all, man, to reflect on your time playing at Chaney, and maybe particularly that 92 season. And I do know Dallas Saunders watches these videos I've been posting on my channel. Presumably Coach Burtis may be watching too, so maybe he'll take a look at this. So what would you say, man, about your time at Chaney? Either one of y'all.
You can go ahead, Tom.
I was hoping you go first.
Just to preface it really quickly, Tommy, starting linebacker, center, co-captain on that 92 team, all-state, all that kind of stuff. Brief little intro. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great experience playing football at Chaney. It was something that I had, heard stories of. My dad had coached very briefly on I think he was a linebacker position coach in the early 80s, and, heard stories of players, and, so just getting the chance to play and be on the team was a big deal for me. And it was just the memories of the relationships, that's what I remember mostly, is like the guys you went to battle with, so to speak. I don't have specific memories of like certain plays. I mean, obviously there's some plays and such, but just being part of that progression too. I remember, being the ball boy, as a freshman at some of those games, and I think they went 1-9.
Yeah.
And then to get some time as a sophomore and get a letter, and we went 5-5, I believe, that year. And then just, see it, escalate and see the program rise at that time. It was just a really, really fun time to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Dwayne, you got anything?
Yeah, me and Tom's story is completely opposite. My the way I got to Chaney was completely different. It wasn't even expected by me. I wanted to go to South because I was a South Side kid, but my mother had different plans for me. So I think, Kill, you and Ron, did y'all come on the racial balance transfer too?
Correct, yeah. Because I was on my way to Rand, using my grandma's address on the north side as I had for years. But yeah, my mom had different plans for me too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was disappointed. My mother said, I want you on the track to go to college, and it wasn't about sports,
Mhm.
But and it's amazing because you think about it, us three, how did we get selected? Definitely was graceful, you know, but it's amazing. So they plucked like the good black kids out of the south side, north side. And that's what it seemed like. And look, all of us that was on that racial balance transfer, we all went to college, we all graduated. We're all somewhat successful at whatever you deem as successful, but we're all good fathers. So, how did they come up with that? How did they pluck us out of there?
Well, Dwayne, from talking earlier on the call with Coach, Sylvester touched on that too, and I think it was. I don't think it was so much the system. I just think kind of a self-selection thing. Like I said, all of our moms had different plans for us than where we wanted to go. Because I did the Harding Elementary School thing. I was the nerdy smart kid. I got into junior high school and things kind of went sideways for me grade wise. And if that hadn't happened, I think my mom would have let me go on to Rand, but she didn't like, the influence that was happening. So that's how I wound up at Chaney. So, and I think probably your mom and Ron, they all say the same thing,
Yeah, and Ron and Chuck kind of had the same, and Mark had the same path because we went to Cleveland School. Didn't you go to Cleveland School, Ron? Elementary?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, then to Princeton, but my mother didn't want me to go to Princeton because of people like Ron. I'm just kidding. She didn't want me to go to Princeton, so we went to Adams because she actually tried to get us into Boney on a racial balance transfer before we went, and they rejected us then. So of course me and Mark. So then she put us in Adams, and that experience was worse than my experience when I got to Chaney, because at Adams it was all Puerto Ricans and some black people. So that was a hard adjustment. So then we got accepted to Chaney, and like I was saying earlier, my path, me and Mark's path was a lot different than Mager's because ours was more of a social, political, academic, athletic type of journey. When we got to Chaney, first our journey to get to Chaney was we had to take the WRTA from the south side all the way to the west side.
Oh yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know it was a west side of Youngstown at that time. I didn't, because I never went. I just went south side, east side, and north side sometimes. But anyway, so just catching the bus all the way over to Chaney was an experience itself. And then when you get in Chaney and you just one of a handful of black people, that was a culture shock also. So what did they told us we had to do a racial balance transfer, and we had to sit out that freshman year, our freshman year.
Correct. Yeah, we've all reflected on that sitting out that first year kind of deal, and what that meant for our careers and everything. And I remember, having played for the Northside Knights and Hayes and having a good amount of success, and kind of thinking I was going on that Rand pathway, and Rand had some good success and everything, and Chaney really hadn't, throughout the '80s. I knew I was going to come back out for football, but I was like, man, this is not going to be great. And I had a front row seat to that 1-9 season, our freshman year, being in the band playing my flute, and I was not encouraged by what I saw there. But I said, hey, I want to play again, and so if it's going to be a Chaney, it's going to be a Chaney. But I did not envision the success I had for sure.
I don't. Me and Mark, and I don't want to speak on Mark's behalf, but I'm walking in the house, fellas. We were so disappointed when we found out that we couldn't play football for that year. We looked at each other like, "What are we going to do?" Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Well,
All right, sorry about that.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
so we was thinking like, because we've been playing football since we was 5 years old, you know.
Right. Right.
So hit that line, please. So we like, we don't know what to do. So that's when we met, you know, Killer and Killer. What was that game we used to play with Bawani with the cards?
Oh, the Stratomatic basketball.
Yeah,
Yeah. Definitely.
And you know, I kind of patched it together. I worked in the kitchen at school, made like $10 a week or whatever else, and we just kind of made it work. And I think, in hindsight, not for athletic purposes, I think athletically it set me back a year, but just to, I guess, acclimate to that new environment. Because at that time, the only white people I had ever saw was our teachers. You know? And I had to get adjusted to that, and we adjusted very well. And it was a easy process, and we never experienced any kind of racism or anything like that. Never. The whole time there, everybody was just, because at first the only people we knew was Stacy, our cousin. And you know, just that transition, it was smooth. You know, being bused from inner city black, you know, all the way over to the west side, then having that experience with the academics was more challenging. You know, being one of few, we went from majority as far as black people to extreme minority when we got over to Chaney. So, and socially, it was good that racial balance transfer was good. But you know, when we finally got athletically, we was able to play our sophomore year. And me and Mark always joke about this. We was Jeff Navarro, our first time in the weight room. This is the first time me and Mark ever lift weights. And we had 225s on the end of the bars. And I'm sitting there struggling. I'm like, Jeff Navarro came over and he was laughing at me. He's laughing at me and Mark. So he got on the bench and started throwing the weights up in the air and catching it. There was only 95 pounds. And he just throwing it up, catching it. And, you know, I told Jeff, and definitely Mark, I'll be stronger than you by the time I leave here. And I was benching 245 when I left. I don't know if that was more than Jeff at that time, but that's how much I was benching. And I was only 145 pounds. So I think we came our class, that 92 class, was the springboard for Chaney program. I think Mack and them and Treleski and Sambarone kind of has started the journey, but I think ours was the springboard. Because I don't think that Burtis had ever had that kind of much talent. Multiple Mager, Chuck. We were so talented. And I think that our talent was beyond Burtis. He didn't know how to use us, I don't think, in my opinion. We were still in 3-point stands at the receiver.
Yeah, I remember that.
I just don't think, I think from a social, racial type of standpoint, he didn't know how to make it work at that time. That was early on. I think he got better with it when Floyd came after us. But with us, it was hard. Tim Needham was starting in front of me. Like, my son in the 8th grade was better than Tim Needham. But I think they had the right people, they had the right guys that they brought in on a racial balance transfer that I didn't cause a problem. I just said, I'm gonna outwork him. Maybe he shouldn't be starting in front of me, maybe he should. But they had the right people to say, okay, I'm not gonna cause a scene. I'm not gonna get mad because I'm better than this kid or anything like that. I'm just like, we'll share time and my time will come.
Well, definitely. That was definitely an ethic there on our team that you know, you playing college football and Ron and Sylvester with scholarship stuff on the line. that whole ethic of, wait your turn and all that that goes out the window, right? Like that's not how it is. But yeah, but coach he was very blatant about it. He's like, hey, I'm gonna give a preference to the older guys, to get some time and whatnot if things are close, kind of deal. And I think we certainly bought into the whole concept of, if that's what he deems is best for the team, we'll roll with it, kind of deal. And obviously, it wound up working out in the end. You talked about the whole springboard thing. Everybody's biased, I think, for their time that they played, but just objectively, I mean, you can't dismiss the fact that, first city title in however many years, or that sophomore year, first playoff appearance our junior year, first playoff win senior year, like that stretch there. I mean, that for those milestones, you can't really match that in that short period of time. And like you said, things kind of rolled on after that for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think I have a comment before we move on to just like about like Dwayne makes some good points about like the social aspects of just unfamiliarity with people who don't look like you, and it's I think sometimes forgotten like the white kid didn't see a lot of black guys either before too, And I still remember, which I felt like youth football was a great introduction. And the first time I met Sylvester, he played running back for the little 49ers. And I remember the coach, he just called him Delaney, he had forearm pads on. And the dude would just run into people like no moves, but so freaking strong and fast, and I think we had like, I don't know if Herman Benson was on that team too, but like, and we would scrimmage like the Southside Braves and the Northside Knights. And, it was just a really, just great, your parents tell you, that, we're all the same, in God's eyes and stuff. But until you're, around people who look different than you, you don't know that, and then, and then when you get to Chaney, and then I felt that, everybody seemed to, look at each other, the same way, and as a football team or as athletes, we had a common goal.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, and I mean, also kind of culturally too. The now just keep it real, right? The coaching staff. We'd have those little playful, like little ethnic jokes and things of that nature, and like I didn't know like all the ethnic humor amongst like the white groups. The first time I ever heard somebody get called like a dumb Polak or whatever, like I didn't know that was like a bad thing. You hear Bertus or Mick or somebody throw that around, and the Italians and so it was kind of interesting to see that kind of ethnic humor amongst white people. But again, I never had known that till I got up to Chaney. That was kind of interesting.
And again, Sylvester path was a lot different than ours, because Sylvester came up through the Volney to Chaney, and Sylvester was kind of, I remember our first engagement with Sylvester. Mark actually broke his arm when we played the West Side 49ers in the Little League game. That was our first time ever, ever saw Sylvester or whatever else. And Sylvester was kind of granted or deemed as the next coming at Chaney. He was the first person that I know of that started as a freshman for varsity. And he was kind of anointed that ahead of time, And because when we got there, Sylvester wasn't he starting as a freshman?
No, he didn't start.
He didn't start.
He played freshman ball with me.
He didn't. Yeah. I thought he started. I thought he didn't let him.
He dressed out the last game of the season against Mooney, and then that following season,
he's obviously
he elevated when they switched Mac over to fullback, and when you look back, we just didn't have a lot of depth at that running back position then because I think Wallison was starting at fullback first, and we went
Jason
up to
Benson, didn't Jason Benson play? He played running back.
that year. He there 90 or was he hurt?
It wasn't. Yeah, it was Wallison and like Wallison, me and Matt kind of at fullback, and again Matt doing the majority of our sophomore year, you know. And I don't remember Benson being in the mix much.
I think he was hurt that season. He broke something, I believe. And then, you know, Sylvester was stronger than most of us at that point because he had been, you know, going to lifting and in the program for a year. So, you know, he just kind of had the advantage in that regard. And then there just wasn't a lot of depth that year because even DeMond Taylor, I don't remember him being out there that season either.
Bernie was there.
Really just Mac and Sylvester as far as tailbacks went.
Didn't Bernie play? Got Bernie?
Just freshman year, and then he sat out his sophomore year and junior.
Okay.
He came back to us when we were juniors.
Okay. Yeah. So I think when we got started, Ron, from an athletic standpoint, we were behind.
We were,
because down in Little League, all you ran was 27 sweep, 28 sweep.
Yeah.
You know, 20, 22, 24. It wasn't no sophisticated, you know, system, not even in junior high school. So when we was behind both physically and as far as, you know, play wise, we never ran play. I didn't know what a cover 3 was, a cover 2, or whatever else, you know. So we had a lot of catching up to do. And I mean, in the long run, I don't knock it or anything like that. It was for the best because it helped me acclimate. If I'd have played football in the 9th grade, I wouldn't have adjusted well academically and socially outside of football. I just wouldn't have.
I agree with that as well.
Interesting. You know, one thing I had mentioned before, though, in terms of being discouraged by what I saw, like our freshman year, you know, in terms of that 1-9 team and everything. I did remember, though, thinking that, you know, having played with and against, you know, some of the good dudes at the junior high level, you know, at Hayes and everything, I did get to thinking that, hey, you know, those dudes aren't any better than me. So I was like, you know, when I make varsity at Chaney, we should at least be able to compete with the city schools because like I know those dudes, you know. And so I thought we'd be in the mix for a city title. I did believe that. I didn't know if we'd be, you know, able to beat the Fitches and the Boardmans and all that kind of stuff, though. Did you feel, Tommy, that we were going to be that good?
I you know, I was that kid who, you know, basically if Coach Berta said we were gonna, you know, win the state championship, I'd believe it, you know. So so yeah, I didn't have any worries as to that. You know, it was also the same kid who, you know, thought I was the best player on the field, even though I wasn't. You know, it was just that kind of mentality, you know, to respect all opponents, fear none, you know, even though I was like this little linebacker or O lineman, you know, or the guy was, you know, 50 pounds bigger than me. So I think that, you know, helped me, you know. I don't think it was like a cockiness or anything, but you just kind of always felt that like you could beat the guy over you. And I felt we would have, you know, success, you know, at Chaney.
Tom, can I ask you a question? So, you know, I know with the 6 of us, you know, with the exception of Kenyon, because we didn't all meet up as a collective until 9th grade. And he was the last to our fold as far as like the kids off of the South Side. So like, you know, I know through baseball and going to Boney, were you all a collective group as far as like yourself, Rick, or Tulipano and all? Did you all got play growing up together, like little league football and junior high?
No. Like Rick played for he played for the West Side Patriots. He didn't play at Volney at all. Not sure why. Like I think like we had a quarterback, Colby Littlejohn, my junior year.
See, he's from our side.
Sean Stanford was a running back for us. I forget who our quarterback 8th grade year was. But no, we didn't play together. I think maybe some of those O linemen did on at Volney, but actually like the West Side 49ers were mostly not West Siders.
Right.
Yeah, like I could name guys like Eric Redmond and kid named Pooh. I don't, it's just.
And Benson was with you guys for a year.
Yeah.
Even what's Boomer, Dwayne? What's Boomer's real name? Arthur Redding.
I can't remember him and his brother. I can't remember his real name.
Well, his brother was Desmond. I think Boomer's real name was Arthur. I know they went over there. Well, Boomer was over there for a year, but he may have been on a older weight class than you guys for that year. So leading into Chaney, like what was your expectation as far as what you wanted to accomplish? What was your end goal coming into 9th grade, and what did you want to have said and done about you by the time you left?
That's a good question. I would say probably at that time was just like being able to play for Chaney. I don't think I had anything, any higher aspirations, and then you play, and every kid, they're like, oh, I want to play for Ohio State, like
Right.
that was probably in my head as well. But there was never like a choice or anything, you go and play at Chaney. And I looked up to the class that was ahead of us. I knew they were good at Volney and they had a good 9th grade year. The John Wallacos, Richie Sylvester, like, those inside type of guys, Ryan Hennessy. And I knew they won games as a freshman squad. So, I felt that we could be good as well.
Wayne, I know for us, like, Dwayne and Mark, would you guys start playing at 5?
Yeah. Yep.
So we all went to elementary school together. Mark was there with me from 1st grade through the end of 6th, and then Dwayne came in 3rd grade, about a quarter. You came from Bennett to Cleveland.
No, I was in Cleveland school the whole time.
Kindergarten, 1st and 2nd.
Yeah.
You sure you ain't go to Bennett and then come back?
No.
Man,
No.
I promise you did, because you came into Miss Mark's class like after school started.
Me and Mark went to every school together. I just wasn't
Hilarious.
in class with you, and I was quiet.
Well,
that all changed when I got to high school. But no, me and Mark, the only time we went to Bennett is when Mark got kicked out of Cleveland for pushing somebody down steps.
That's what I'm saying. Y'all left and came back though.
In the 3rd grade, yeah, we left in the 3rd grade.
So, they were already playing ball, before a lot of us in the school, because when you first started, you had to be about 8 to even play 90 pounds. And, our fathers would lie and put us out there anyway. So, the program that they came up in was the Little Braves, and they practiced at Helmet. Well, they had the reputation, for it being very hard to make those teams over there, because Coach Blackshear was a disciplinarian. He didn't take anything from anybody, kids, neighborhood individuals, parents. It was very well organized, a lot of numbers, and they won all the time. So, we're watching Mark and Dwayne come to school year after year after year, with the league championship trophy, and they're parading it around from class to class. And, you guys know just from going to Youngstown schools, you know, when you're in that collection of boys, everything is a competition, no matter what you're doing. You know, it could be kickball, it could be racing. We're getting us to school at 7 a.m. to play football on the playground, and we don't even have to be in the building until 8:45. You know, so I knew.
And Ron, that's what you said was about the little Braves. It was an organization, man. It was from top to bottom. From we was doing I had sometimes when we did camp prior to everybody getting their equipment was harder than YSU.
Yeah.
At times, because we ran the hills, we ran around that big block. I mean, it wasn't, but as a kid, you doing that kind of stuff, that it was hardcore.
Right.
And I was telling my son the other day, we were out of town at one of his camps, and I was telling him about Bull in the Ring. You remember Bull in the Ring?
Right.
Oh man.
Banned in 50 states now, right?
That is completely illegal right at this point. So I was saying to my son how if you did wrong at home or you did something at school or you got a bad grade or something like that, or you were just acting up at practice, Bull in the Ring, put you in the middle of the ring, and don't be acting like you tough, because now you're sending number 19, 20, 4. And that was the way you came up. And that's the way.
Yeah.
And that made you hardcore.
Absolutely.
And that made you compete. Because when we were peewees, we wanted to go up against the big team. You know, and what I'm seeing now, you know, now that I'm going through all this with my son, these kids don't want to compete, man. They just expect to be given stuff and not to earn it. You know, I was telling my son, when I got to YSU, I could have probably started or played a lot, but they decided to redshirt me. And in hindsight, that was the best thing that happened for me. Just like when I got pretty much redshirted at Chaney, it was the best thing. It was the best thing for me because you have to adjust. It's hard to be the young person coming in and taking on. I was telling my son, Dad, I can catch punts, I can catch kicks. It's okay. It's hard when you got 20,000 people in the stadium and under the lights, it's different. So getting that chance to adjust at each of my stages was the best thing for me. And when I got to, Ron, just to answer your question, which you asked Megan, when I got to Chaney, I had no expectation of anything. I was still probably a little upset that my mother sent me to Chaney in the first place, but I'm the type of person that I adapt, and I live in the here and now. I'm not worried about what's going to happen 3 years or 4 years later. It's what am I doing right now? Be the best version of me right now. And one of the best versions of me was being in the dishwasher in the cafeteria. And I was, you know, I never said, I can't wait to play next year. I can't wait to play so we can win games. I had no expectations. I just, what am I doing right now? And when I got there my sophomore year, now I'm going to be the best version of. They're going to see a little brave, you know. And that's what. And it was amazing. I was watching our highlight film from high school, our senior year. It was amazing how we just flew around. Every play, we was at an all-out sprint. Who can get to the ball first to hit? And that wasn't instilled into us. That's just the way we play. And I think when everybody's seen the way we play, everybody else wanted to play like that. When everybody saw that we were humble and that we were respectful and that we respected the coaches, even if we didn't like some of the outcomes that was coming on, we were still respectful. And I think that kind of gravitated through the whole team. Not to be greedy, not to be disrespectful, to be appreciative, to play hard. And that's kind of things that I try to instill into my son.
Well, you know, part of I in terms of as an individual, yeah, I had the notion again because Chaney wasn't so good. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get on this field. I'm going to be a starter here because, you know, these guys aren't very good, right? So what does that say about me if I can't start for this team? and then still being in contact with, my North Side dudes that I went to school with, the Herman Bensons, the Fitzgeralds, those guys that played for Rand. They kind of keeping in contact with them. They clowning me about how they're gonna, smash us when we play and all that. I was like, no, that's not gonna happen. I was like, we're gonna get a city title out of our time here. That's all I wanted. And then as far as afterwards, yeah, I mean, I knew I was going to college. Wasn't even like 100% sure football was really going to be part of it, to be honest. But I definitely wanted at least, and I thought if we could at least get one city title, that would be just sort of validation. You know what I mean? But I didn't think we would be as good as we wound up being.
Well, when I was bringing up what the Dwayne and Mark's track earlier, it was leading to this. With our league, we played. I guess at times it was about 5 to 6 teams. So it was the Penguins, Sons of Thunder, Boys Club, the Warriors were in and out, and then there may have been another team that would float in and out. But a lot of times, we would have to scrimmage once or twice a week, like all over Youngstown, Warren, Howland. So playing in that league, we got exposed to so many different programs. And I think, for our group as a collective, there wasn't really that fear or hesitation when it came to playing, city league games, because we knew all of those kids. We knew what they could do. We seen them over the years. You knew who was good, who wasn't good. And then when you put us together, and when I say us, I'm talking about our class. Mm-hmm. For me, I remember when we were sophomores and we went 5-5, it wasn't that I wasn't grateful to be on a city championship team, but 5-5 seemed like the bottom of the floor in terms of expectation and feeling good about a season. Going undefeated in the city was great. Getting that spot time playing special teams and getting introduced to varsity football was good. But I know for me, I felt like, 5-5 and just to win the city championship, that's not what I'm used to. It's not how we were brought up playing football and competing. And when you look across as a sophomore and you're on the bench and you're watching what's happening, you're seeing Fitch, you're seeing Boardman, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, these are the same kids that we used to run over, at the lower levels. What's different now? And then having that familiarity with, guys like Mark, Dwayne, and Chuck, and Sylvester, and knowing what they're capable of, it was just really about getting adjusted, buying in to, those program rules that Coach Burtis laid out for us. Some of the structure was a little bit different than what I think some of us were used to, but it was like once you had that acceptance, once you had that trust, I never doubted that as a group we were going to be good, because like you would look around the weight room and you see a guy like Tom Tulipano, clean and jerking, 275. You could see yourself, Tom, getting after it on the bench. And then you have, especially even Rick, even though he was only relied on as a quarterback all our time, I remember when we were in summer conditioning and we were doing like 7-on-7s, he was making plays at safety, picking the ball off just off a raw instinct, that natural athleticism that he had. And when you really think about all the things that he tried athletically, like he had talent that was well beyond, what he was limited to as far as basketball, only being the quarterback and, being relied on primarily as a pitcher and infielder in baseball, so I think had we got a little bit more experience that first year and gotten acclimated to what the program rules were sooner, I think some of us might have even got to compete a little bit sooner, or at least contributed a little bit more that 90 year instead of having to wait, to come of age 91. Because when we all hit varsity 91, if you think about our class as a collective, we supplanted some guys that had been waiting their turn for 3 seasons. And I remember being surprised at that, because when you play for a Braves or Northside Knight or a Penguin Sons of Thunder or what have you, you don't question what your coach says. You just do whatever is told to you. So if it's your turn to wait until you reach this level, this pound, it's just your turn to wait. And I think, we took some of that over to that varsity experience of thinking, well, we got to pay our dues and wait our time. But I think, as we matured, and when you really look back at it, we probably could have been put into the fold a little bit sooner and had the background and mentality and ability to even handle some of that.
No doubt. To pivot a little bit, everybody on here played after Chaney, next level football. On this particular call, we got Division 1, 2, and 3 represented, and me and Ron had talked at length, with Sylvester and Mark about their experiences after Chaney, and so I definitely want to give Tommy and Wayne a chance to talk about a little bit, the whole recruiting thing, and then how you felt that your time at Chaney prepared you for the next level, and things of that nature. Definitely want to hear a little bit about that. Who wants to lead off? Tommy, you want to lead off?
Sure. Yeah, so recruiting, it was nothing special. Just, you get the phone calls from the coaches, you go and show up and check the schools out. I think at Case, for me, it was the coach really sold like my dad on basically like, you're not going to be playing football or baseball the rest of your life, and you got to find a school that's going to, get you a job and be comfortable with it, and et cetera, et cetera. And so he was kind of sold on it. And I remember just going around, visiting, and one coach we had, he's just like, oh, there's Joe so-and-so, he got accepted into medical school, and Mike X, he's doing a chemical engineering job at DuPont or something, and just on and on. And so I ended up choosing this the school because it was a good school. It was an opportunity to play both football and baseball, so I liked that about it. And knowing Kenyon was going there to play football, which he did not the first couple years, which was unfortunate. So that's on the recruiting process, and then transitioning there, it was not a good football program at all. I remember my first game, I was playing outside linebacker, which I did not belong at outside linebacker, just was not quick enough. And, fullbacks flying at you and chop blocking you, and just getting frustrated, and we're getting killed. I ended up just getting in a fight with somebody and got tossed out of my first college game. So that was notable. But yeah, we end up getting a new coach, and as years went on, the program improved, and I would say it was fun. It was fun playing defense, and I got injured my junior year. So
and again, you went back to inside backer, just to let them know. Right?
Went back to inside backer after the first couple weeks my freshman year, and I think I ended up leading the team in tackles, had a,
Oh,
pretty,
definitely.
pretty decent year. And then I didn't play my sophomore year. Kenyon then rubbed off on me, and I'm like, we went 1-9, and he's sitting around getting to study, and I'm like, you know what, this really freaking sucks. And actually, like, the seniors went to the AD to boot out, to kick out the coach. And so I sat out my sophomore year, and then I came back my junior and senior year.
Hmm. And yeah, and we hit the mountaintop for us at 5-5 our senior year. It's the best we did. But it was
Yeah.
fun, and me and Megs, definitely out there together, doing
Yeah.
our things. That was fun. And,
You,
and, and we played at junior year too. We went 1-9, I think, as our junior year. Right. That sucked.
yeah. Yeah. And it's as a defensive unit, though, our
we were
senior
we, we,
year, that
we
was
were
like the
we were
closest
really
thing.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was probably the closest thing to, Chaney. Um, I mean, the games we lost 3-0 or
We
7-3.
7-6. Yeah,
Um,
14-12. I mean, we rarely gave up more than 2 touchdowns, and we oftentimes gave up single digits. And to be honest, they're starting to become a little riff on the team because you remember in the locker room and the little whispers like the O is not getting it done and that kind of thing. So we got a little splinter in that regard. But
yeah, it was kind
yeah,
of the
man.
first taste of, Chaney was just your team, and
Yeah,
most guys played on both sides of the ball.
right.
But in college, it was, it was like there was the offensive team and the defensive team, and there was definitely some, you know, dissension, amongst the ranks. But probably at good teams, it's not like that, or good programs. But where we were at, there definitely was a, chatter amongst the defense that we hated our offense.
That's natural though. Yeah, with me, just to go back up to rewind a little bit, what Ron was saying about winning and losing. And like I said before, I live in the moment. I don't worry about the next game. I don't worry about what our record is going to be. And a lot of that, and you guys will hear me, it's a common thing, is how I came up, what I experienced coming up. No, me and Mark wasn't in the streets. That's not what I'm talking about us, how I came up. I came up with the School of Hard Knocks with Mark. And it was a knuckle fight every day from age 1 all the way up to probably 25 the last time we fought or something. And that was like, and every time we fought and every time we battled, it was for who was competing against each other. He's a better athlete than me, but I'm like, damn it, you ain't gonna beat me every time though. And when I got to 5 years old, we have been battling all the way up to 5. And my parents just was like, come on, let's put these boys in some football, let them play football or something. They're gonna be back here killing each other in the backyard. And it was just competing all of my life. Then we get to the Braves. I don't know how my father and my mother selected the Braves. No, because a lot of my cousins played for the Boys and Girls, the Boys Club. It's Boys and Girls now. So I don't. It might have been Blackshear that maybe they was attracted to with his discipline and his ability to run a good team. But you got there at 5. Yeah, I played till I was 12. That was a good portion of my life. Blackshear was just as much, almost a father figure raising me also. My father had me at home. He had me. He had us on the field, and I remember when he passed away, and my mother, she was struggling trying to tell us, and we just bawled. Me and Mark just bawled like he was a father, and he was hard on you. Like he'd come smack your helmet, and your helmet might go flying 20 yards, but he was also a guy that would come up to you and say, I love you and everything else too. And when it was time to play, it was like, you're going to run through a wall for that dude. you know, and it was just, when I say it was just a battle every day at practice, and it was a battle that you was looking forward to because you wanted to beat somebody out. Ron said we had numbers. We had 100 kids on for all three teams. So it was a battle every day. And when you got your chance and you started, you like, okay, I'm doing something because we won championships. We won championships. So when I got to Chaney, winning was an expectation. You know, failure wasn't even a word in the dictionary. You know, and and then he taught you, all the coaches for the Little Braves, if you did lose, you lose graciously and respectfully, and then you come back the next day and try to kick somebody's ass. That's it. That's the mentality. That was the mentality, and that wasn't just because he'd show up at your school. Our coaches show up at your schools too, and so it wasn't about just football. It was just life, being a good husband, being a good friend, just flat out. And that's what from 5 years old to 12 years old, that was instilled into all of us. I don't want to say just me, and to all of us. And then when you get to Chaney, I don't feel as though Chaney helped me as much athletically as it did socially. I wouldn't have been able to handle the social aspect of college if I wouldn't have went to Chaney. I'd have struggled a little bit. But obviously, as you get bigger in the bigger schools, you got people to hold your hand a little bit more. So you get people to help you through the athletic process, but not really the social process. And me having that experience of first being at Adams, experiencing more of the Hispanics, then going to Chaney and having my experience with whites and being a minority in that aspect, that helped me socially transition into YSU. I think wherever me and Mark would have went as far as high school, we'd have turned out the same, if not better. I don't know, because that was just in our DNA. But we was never exposed to that socially, though. So I think that was the best thing for me to happen to me socially, because, you know, when you get to school, college, you're on your own pretty much, you know, as far as the social aspect of it. So when I got to YSU, as far as football, it was all of the best players in Youngstown on YSU team. Andre Mason, Tamron Smith, Pixley. It was all Ronnie Rogers. So we practice at YSU was like practice for the Little Braves. It was straight banging. We hated the offense. We wanted to kill the defense, kill the offense. We had this. I don't know if you guys know Ramona Mill, Kristen Mill's older brother. Yeah. He from the South Side. He came up just saying, because they hated the receivers. I don't hate nobody, but you know how Andre Mason is. He had this criminal type of mentality all of his life, and they just hated the receivers. And so we named ourselves, Ramona Mill named us, our DBs, the Doodoo Zone. And he said, this is, you come to the Doodoo Zone, you get the shit knocked out of you. And that was their mentality. And I adjusted. That was the easiest adjustment I ever had to make, because they spoke my language on the football field. And when I got to Chaney, I had to damper that down a little bit, because that was not the way that program was being ran. It wasn't what I experienced when I was coming up with the Little Braves. And then when I get to YSU, I was like, I'm at home. This is a bunch of roughnecks, and because Tressel, but early on, he only recruited. Well, I'm gonna say this, not only he recruited mostly inner city kids. He went to Detroit, he went to Canton, he went to inner city schools in Florida where the kids were like questionable a little bit as far as their behavior, as far as their grades. So we had a bunch of questionable characters on our teams. And he made it work because he was a leader.
Mhm.
This guy is amazing. I was sitting down talking to Brian Mahone. His sons play for Chaney with my son. And we were just talking about Jim Tressel. This guy would know your name, what school you came from, and your parents from 30 years ago, right now. He'll tell you. Things that you did. It's just utterly amazing how attention to detail this guy is. And just to rewind a little bit, my first journey wasn't to YSU. It was to Kent. I got a full scholarship to Kent. And that was my first time being away from home. That was my first time being away from Mark. And I had agreed to go to Kent on full scholarship, which I don't know how they did it, worked it out for me as far as academically. But in Mark at Toledo also. But when I got there, I agreed to go to Kent because they was recruiting this kid named, his last name was Thompson. And me and him met on our recruit visit up there. And so me and him agreed, we'll get, he was from Cleveland. And so we went to the coach during our recruit visit and I said, I'll come if you bring him, because they wasn't really offering him a scholarship. So I said, I'll come if you bring him, whatever else. Because they had did it big for me. They had my jersey up in the locker, and I was supposed to start at punt return and receiver. It was me and this kid from Washington, D.C. that they was bringing in as a true freshman also, that they wanted us both to start. I was going to be doing punt returns. He was going to do kick returns. But this kid, Thompson, he was a D lineman, big kid. He was probably about 6'4", like 290, 300 pounds. And as a matter of fact, he rode with us, me and my parents, up to the Big 33 game to see Mark play. So me and him had got became real good friends. So I remember when I went up there to check in for 2 days, and I got there and they put me in this little cubby hole. I swear my closet's bigger than the dorm room that I was in. So I barely got my TV and my refrigerator in there. So I'm sitting there and a day go by, the night go by, I go to, I don't know if you guys know Kevin Harris. Kevin Harris was a great player at Wilson that went to Kent, and he was my guy for recruiting and everything else. And but that was his senior year. He was leaving when I was coming in. And then the next day, so I go to the coach, like, where's, Thompson? And he says, they didn't offer him, they didn't bring him in. I'm like, that's what we agreed on. And I'm already homesick. I'm already Mark sick. And so I'm like, thank you. Just sit there. So I'm like, I call my mother, like, come get me. So my father on the other end, like, no, don't go get that boy. Let him stay there. Let him stay there. He'll be okay. Nope, I'm going to get my bacon. And everybody know me. I was a mama's boy, still is to a certain extent. So my father and my mother come up there. My father fussing. You can see steam coming out his ears. He mad. But anybody know my family dynamics coming up in my home? My mother ran the show. And so the coach was like, he'll be okay. My mother looked at me, you want to come home? Yes. Get in the car, let's go. So I come back to Youngstown, and I get to start. I wasn't doing nothing. I was sleeping on my father, sleeping on the couch, and it's one day my parents had just got divorced soon after that, and I'm just laying on this couch day after day after day. So one day my father get up in the morning. He's still there. It's like 7 a.m. And because he's usually gone about 5 a.m. He like, come on, let's go. I'm like, where we going? Let's go. He drove me up to YSU. I don't know how he got in touch with Tressel or whatever he did. So me and him sitting in front of YSU, sitting in front of Tressel. He's like, I want him to come back. I want him to, play. Tressel's like, okay, he can walk on and try to earn a spot on the roster. My father's like, okay, and left me. He left and said, I'll be back to get you after I come back from work, after I get off work. And the first 3 or 4 days of tour days, my father would drop me off and pick me up before the second half, before the second camp, second day of camp. I mean, the second half of camp. And one day, one day, Tressel called me in his office, like that first week, 3 or 4 days, and he says, "Why don't you stand for the whole camp, the whole day, 2 days?" I said, "Well, I don't have nowhere to stay, and I don't have no food. When everybody go back up to the door and go to sleep, I'm just walking around campus, you know." So my father just come get me and he take me home. He's like, "Well, we want you to stay." And I say, "I don't have nowhere to stay." He's like, "Well, we're gonna give you room and board." So that was within the first 3 days, 3 or 4 days. And then that following week, the second week of 2 days, he called me back in his office, like, "We're just gonna give you a full ride." And I had my full scholarship that second week. And the reason why, because I was banging that practice, that whole brave mentality. And it wasn't that, you know, this is a true story, and this is that mentality that I'm talking about. So they had this guy, his name was Trey Hill from the inner city Canton. I'm 18, and we jogging off the field. He's 23, he's a senior, and possibly was looking at getting drafted. So we jogging off the field. He says, and he looks at me like, "I can kick your ass. You're 18 now." And I'm looking at him like, you can't. He's a 6'4", but he respected. The reason he was saying that because he respected, because I was in there banging against the first team defense, against the first team offense, and like I said, there was a bunch of misfits from different inner cities, and that's how you gained your respect, by being in there banging with cats like Andre Mason, Cameron Smith, all of those guys that's from the inner city. And Tressel respected that. And he named our hardest, when you get the hardest hit of the game, is named after Derek Pixley. It's the Pixley Award. And he respect that. And what he tries to do is get a player with that mentality, reach the clear out, and try to tame him a little bit with that controlled aggression. So, and that's what we all had at YSU, was controlled aggression. And he respected that, and that's how I was able to earn my scholarship within a week of being there. So, and you know, a lot of my conversations, a lot of like I said, with Chaney, it was more social. Meeting Ron, meeting Kenya, adjusting to that setting and things like that. But my time at YSU, I think I came about being more responsible, being a good father, the potential of being a good father, the potential of being a good husband, is when I earned the captain of the team my senior year. And that came out of the blue. You know, when we go to this golf outing at the end of the training camps, and that's when they named the captains of the team. And it's a vote by all the coaches and all the players. And I'm sitting there at one time, and they call him the captain here. They call him this D-Tom. That's what Coach Tressel called him, D-Tom. I'm still I had no expectation of being, and one of my friends from Detroit, he nudged me like, "Coach Tress calling you, D-Tom, defense captain." And that right there, that changed my whole life and it sent me on a trajectory of where I'm at right now.
Great story, huh? Great.
So coming out of Chaney, like, you know, the way that we were kind of groomed, and that culture of, you know, team first, buying in, not drawing attention to yourself as an individual. And, you know, how did that change over going into that college atmosphere? Because I know for me, you know, it was looked at as a negative because I never like spoke up for myself, I never, you know, drew attention to myself, so they thought I didn't have any passion and didn't care. You know, what was y'all experience like in that regard?
You know, and I think Tom will back me up on this. Our experience was the talent level for the school that we played at, kind of deal. I mean, even though I wound up quitting after that freshman camp or whatever, I had established myself as a starter as a freshman there. Tommy's starting already. I mean, honestly, we were already some of the better guys on the team from the get go, so it really wouldn't have mattered in terms of like being selfish or not and all that kind of stuff. So that dynamic just really wasn't there. I was more wrestling with the, you know, Dwayne's talking about that acclimation piece of things, with, you know, you kind of being on your own and quite honestly being a little, well, I guess a lot insecure if I could get like really high grades amongst all these other people there that are studying all the time and don't have football as an additional thing on their plate. I was more worried about that than the football, to be honest. And in terms of like my ability to play there and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think we already knew kind of coming in, we'd be able to, you know, kind of play whenever, you know. So that was me.
Well,
Yeah, I don't.
go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Mhm.
No, go ahead.
With me, like when I was Blackshear never wanted showboating, so we never showboated, and that was kind of like instilled in us. Like you got to have swag. Don't get me wrong, but you don't showboat. You don't throw it up in somebody else's face. So when I got to Chaney, and that was kind of the culture there too, I was, it was, I had no trouble with that. Now when we got to YSU, when I got to YSU, Trust was the same way. Have your swag, but I don't want you no showboating in when you score. Like Tamron Smith, uh, it was a big game at the stadium. I think it was my freshman year, which was his senior year, and he scored a touchdown. You guys might have saw it on the news. And he said, he put the person under the lazy boy. They had this lazy boy set up in the back of the end zone, where the scoreboard is up there on that grass as a premier seat. They were selling that seat for people that raffled it off or something like that. So Tamron scored, ran up on the hill, asked the person to get out of his seat, and he sat in the chair and crossed his legs. and Tressel went berserk. And every time Tam did something like that, he had to run the stadiums the next day for workouts. So Tressel didn't like that, you know, pounding or anything like that. I think Ron, with you more of a laid back, and people can miss can when they assess him, you like, oh, he don't care, or whatever else, but they don't know that you go just as hard or whatever else. You lay back, you don't talk trash, but they just have to watch you play. When you watch you play, you like, oh, okay, that he's a dude right there. So I think you got a lot of, maybe people just read you the wrong way. But yeah, I never, that was never part of my game. And that was every coach, every level that I've been at didn't appreciate that type of behavior either.
Tommy?
Well, yeah, I echo those sentiments, and you know, and I think it's true for real life. I mean, we all kind of work with teams, you know, and you know that jerk who thinks they think they're better than you or they deserve more than what they're getting, you know, as opposed to being, you know, a team player. Um, you know, and it was the mentality my father instilled in me, and you know, the coaches I played with as well. You know, put your head down, work hard, work as hard as anybody, but you don't need to toot your own horn.
See, at our level, and we talked about it a little bit last week, you know, when you're in that cusp of Division II, your money is variable in regards to that scholarship. So, you know, we spoke with Chuck last week. It's all about how you play in spring ball that determines, you know, how much they're going to allot you. Put that on top with, you know, my position coach from sophomore year through the rest of my time. He was from Detroit, and he was a ex NFL guy. So for him, it was about, you know, I want to see, you know, how you feel about the game. I want you to be aggressive. If you're not speaking up for yourself, you know, that means you're timid or you're fearful. So, you know, for me, I bump my head a lot at various points up there because you know, like all of us, we come from that blue collar, steel town mentality that, hey, you get up, you go to work, punch the clock, come home, and then do it again the next day. And, you know, the results is in the effort that you put forth, whether it be work, playing on the field, classroom, what have you. But there, you know, if the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So we didn't really have that team first mentality. There was a lot of, you know, get yours before somebody else does. So I was just kind of curious, you know, what each of you guys' experience was making that transition from that Youngstown way of thinking and into that college environment where it's not necessarily always about merit or always about, you know, the work or the time that you put in. It's more like, for us at least, it was, okay, you're the starter this week, but next week, you know, your job's on the line again. You gotta prove it again. Oh, you had a good year last year, but this year we got XYZ coming in. You know, you might not be the incumbent starter, you know.
I thought that was kind of weird. You were the one that hit me to that whole Division II thing. I did not know that, you know, being on that partial scholarship thing and then, you know, play in springtime and get yourself some leverage to get some more scholarship money. It seems like the worst of both worlds. Like, you know, the D3 level, you know, nobody's getting any money officially, although I suspect there are some schools that give out money in a different sort of way. And at the Division I level, you know, it's either you got a scholarship or you don't. So that's kind of clean too. But that seems like a bad system, that D2, in terms of, you know,
Well,
in as much as you try to go ahead. You got the same thing, Wayne?
From a D1, yeah, from a D1 perspective, like, and I can't speak for when you get hired in like Ohio State. Every year we had to come in and sign our scholarship, for our scholarship. So you're getting offered your scholarship every year, and when you're a certain type of dude on the team, that's not even. I never thought or had a concern about my scholarship after I earned it that first. When they saw what I could do, and I never had that concern. And a lot of the people that I hung around, they never had that concern. You know, it was just, so maybe that experience a little bit different being D1 AA, but it was always, that's just something we had to do. It was a requirement that we had to come in and sign for whatever else. We probably had to be reminded about 20 or 30 times, and me being so young, didn't realize that that's your scholarship you need to go sign for. You know, and maybe a little bit of arrogance at the same time, but that would have been hard for me, that experience, as you said, Ron. It'd have been hard for me because, you know, my mentality is when I earn something, it's on me to lose it, not for somebody to come take it. It's on me to lose it. And if that's always up in the air, that's kind of stressful. That seems kind of stressful.
It was, but at the same time, you know, we're all cut from the same cloth. It was never a doubt in my mind that, you know, I'm gonna be whatever I decide to be as far as play on the field. You know, that was never in question for me. It's just that, like you said earlier, I get misread a lot because I'm an observer. You know, I'm not always the vocal guy outside of the lines, but you know, as far as not knowing if you're going to get more money, not knowing if it's going to stay the same, and tuition, rising every year, it was stressful in that regard. But, it also teaches you that once you get out of there, everything's not going to be equitable, everything's not going to be fair, and a lot of stuff is going to be perception. You know what I mean? So it actually helped me deal with life after college in terms of, all right, show people who you are right from the beginning so that they don't form their own opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey fellas, we're going about an hour 15 right now. I gotta cut out here soon. But before that, I wanted to remind y'all, if y'all haven't, I don't know if y'all are big YouTubers or not, but you subscribe to that Once a Cowboy, Always a Cowboy podcast, or if not, I'll likely send out a link when that episode comes out discussing that 92 team. I mean, I think y'all will find it an interesting thing to watch. And did you, Tommy, both you and Wayne, did y'all participate when we had that? Remember we had that the little mini football player reunion, a number of years, well, a lot of years back now. Did y'all come to that? Okay.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, so they mentioned that they are actually contemplating doing another one of those. It wouldn't be like a class specific thing. I think they kind of want to do a big thing where it's kind of just like a big, all years, kind of reunion kind of thing. So that may be something that may be in the works too. So I think that'd be a kind of a cool thing to do. And I think Dallas wants to do it also, that kind of honor coach too, and whatnot. So just keep that in mind. But any last words or thoughts anybody want to say? And I just want to say I appreciate you guys' time, man. I know it's tougher and tougher to carve out even like an hour, but this has been good. It's been nice.
No, it's just really great seeing all you guys and chatting with you.
Yeah.
Well, with me, like I'll give you just an example, and this probably can wrap up our whole discussion with my topic is all these years I was on 3 national championships at YSU, and my last one being a captain. I have never participated in anything other reunions of anything that they did that they have for us. Not even the ceremony where they bring ex-players onto the field. But if you guys have something for the 92 team, I will participate in that, because the thing that I was trying to get at was I made lifelong social friends in high school, but not in college. College was business. that was business. Chaney was, when I think of Chaney, I don't think as much as the football as I do just the friendships and different things that I have with that. So it wasn't business. It was a life-changing event outside of football. So I'll be more than glad to come to any kind of events that we do jointly or whatever.
Good stuff.
Tom, I've always respected you and the way that you've gone about handling yourself, as far as your academics. You've been with the same woman since you started growing hair on your face, and then you always put it down out there on the field, and I'd never seen any fear or hesitation from you. So I just wanted to let you know that I always respected that. Dwayne, when I look back at our highlight films, and it's different when you're an adult. You play college football. I've been lucky enough to be able to coach at all the levels below the NFL at least. So when I watch football or watch old stuff now, I look at it with a different eye, and it's a little bit more critical. And the way that you played in high school with the limited time that you had, you should have been a starter bar none. It was just unfortunate that we had a system that only used 3 DBs at one time. We didn't throw the ball enough, but like the plays that you made and some of the hits that you laid down, your talent was just immense. And, you know, I know personally, you know, knowing you as long as I have, that you've always been that guy. It wasn't anything that you matured into or grew into. You always were an attack first guy, a playmaker without, like you said, being in the moment. You know, I didn't necessarily come to games thinking I'm going to score a touchdown or I'm going to have an interception. But when you watch how you played and the plays that you made, you knew that it was intentional and that you knew that you were going to make some type of big play, regardless if you started and played every snap or if you were coming in to rotate with somebody. You always came out there on that field to make something happen to put our team in a position to win. I just wanted you to know that I always respected you for that.
I appreciate it.
Amen.
Yeah, and you know, that's something that I try to instill into my son. It's just not on the field. You know, make a difference every day, you know, in what you do. And, you know, right now I'm the CEO, and it's a lot of people that depends on you every day, you know, and you got to come with that same mentality of, I'm gonna do something to help somebody today, to help somebody else be great, or to help out the team. So that's what I just said. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, I never have expectations. I just work hard. That's it. Work hard, and hopefully everything work out for you. But I appreciate y'all having this.
Yeah, man. And let's not be strangers, man. We ain't gotta do nothing formal to hop on a call, man. You know, I'm getting to that stage of my life where it's like stuff like this, man. It's means more and more. You know what I mean? The older we get, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man.
Well, y'all have my number now. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for the kind words, Ron. There's no one who threw more touchdown passes in JV from the tailback position than you. Dude,
26 pass.
First play of the game every time.
God.
Dude, and no, just seriously, like your talent level, like who knows? Like, I honestly think, you know, Rick's my best friend, but like if you played QB too, like who knows what your career could have been, you know, or just your ability to throw, catch, play running back, you know. It's just the amount of talent we had on that team was insane. It really was.
I'm glad I wasn't a QB. I would have been sitting right now, because if Charlie Ward was not draft eligible, you know, 165 me wasn't going anywhere. So I'm playing BB and all of that, you know.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Folks.
All right, fellas.
All right.